When two wrestlers enter into a storyline, they have to work closely with each other and truly have to get to know each other to make the storyline work to its fullest potential. Unfortunately, this can result in bad blood and the two specific wrestlers having a ton of resentment towards one another. This negative resentment often continues on for years and can even last for decades with no sign of any reconciliation. Now, believe it or not, it's not just a theme that runs throughout the decorated history of WWE, as incidents of this nature have taken place in every major wrestling company from WCW to AEW.
While your ass is wrestling on YouTube, praying for a chance at the company I was building.
Wow.
Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 wrestling feuds and storylines that resulted in real-life conflict. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Number 10. CM Punk and Triple H. CM Punk has made a ton of enemies during his time as an active pro wrestler, but his feud with Triple H certainly cuts deep for the straight-edge savior. In 2011, Punk became the hottest thing in pro wrestling, as this was after the infamous pipe bomb promo, and there was a clear opportunity for WWE to make Punk the top star in the company. Unfortunately, WWE botched Punk's ascension to the top, and one of the reasons for this is that WWE decided to have Punk lose to Triple H at the Night of Champions pay-per-view. At this point in time, the game was semi-retired, and there was no need for Triple H to attain a victory of this magnitude. Punk cites this as the reason he lost all of his positive momentum, and it's hard to disagree. Punk himself admits that he had a ton of resentment towards Triple H for what could be perceived as a burial on pay-per-view, and when WWE wanted Punk to face Triple H at WrestleMania 30, it was a contributing factor to Punk walking out of the company and never returning. The game has never commented in depth on his feelings of Punk, but it has been reported that Triple H wants nothing to do with the former champion. However, time heals old wounds, and it would be interesting to see if the head of WWE Creative would be interested in repairing their damaged relationship. Number 9. Booker T and Batista. In the summer of 2006, WWE implemented a feud between Booker T and Batista over the world title on the SmackDown brand. However, this feud would be put into serious jeopardy during a filming of the commercial for the SummerSlam pay-per-view. Booker believed that Batista had an aura of cockiness and ungratefulness, and this ultimately led to a physical confrontation between the two. It was reported that Booker may have gotten the better of the physical exchange, but other eyewitnesses' reports from the likes of Fit Finlay differ. WWE could have potentially scrapped the feud, but the two were as professional as they come in their matches, and the duo worked a number of times together throughout 2006. In relation to their current status as friends, Booker claims that the two now have a good relationship, and their prior issues are simply water under the bridge. Number 8. Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle. The love and admiration Kurt Angle has for the late great Eddie Guerrero is well documented, but it wasn't always this way. When the two embarked on a feud in 2004, the two had a ton of personal issues, and these issues eventually got physical. According to Angle, these problems between the two escalated when Guerrero accused Angle of being stiff in the ring. Angle would discuss this on his podcast, where he added,
We were getting heat on Eddie, and it was Luther Reigns, Mark Jindrak, and myself. I didn't touch Eddie, okay, so I couldn't have been the one that stiffed him. After the show, we all wait in Gorilla and say thank you and shake each other's hand, and I went to shake his hand. I said, thank you, Eddie. He said, no, what you did out there was wrong. You were stiffing me. I said, Eddie, I didn't touch you. He said, bullshit. You were stiffing me, you were beating me up, and I pushed him, and he double legs me, an amateur wrestling double leg, and I get him down,
Gold medalist,
I got him in a front headlock, and I start choking him out.
Rather hilariously, it was Big Show who eventually broke the fight up, and according to Angle, he put both men in a different corner to stop the commotion. Angle would also reveal that the physicality kicked off once again in the locker room, and this time JBL had to break it up. But despite numerous physical confrontations, the two were able to patch things up, and whenever the two worked together in the ring, it was never apparent that there was any issues between the two WWE legends. Number 7. CM Punk and Ryback. Now, the hatred between Punk and Ryback is no secret, and it truly began when the two first worked together in 2012. Ryback was rather reckless with Punk in the ring, and this negligence resulted in Punk getting injured time and time again. Punk believed that Ryback had a personal vendetta against him, and this would lead to a confrontation between the two backstage. When the two feuded again in 2013, Punk would claim that Ryback was even more reckless, and his actions during their 2013 feud took years off his life. Punk would claim that Ryback was one of the main reasons that he loathed his time in WWE and simply wanted out. In relation to Ryback, he usually likes to take shots at Punk via social media, and when Punk suffered an injury in 2022, he would tweet out "Karma rules," which made no sense. Let's just say that it's unlikely that these two will ever patch things up. Number 6. Bret Hart and Goldberg. It's well established how Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels had a ton of beef in the 90s, but there's perhaps one wrestler that Hart loathed and continues to loathe even more than HBK himself. Whenever Hart takes part in any type of media interview, he's bound to bring up his hatred for Bill Goldberg. Hart's dislike of the former world champion began in late 1999 when the two wrestled in the main event of the Starrcade pay-per-view. Goldberg delivered a stiff kick to Hart's head, and this ultimately resulted in Hart retiring many years before he should have. Hart would never let this bad blood go, and despite Goldberg apologizing numerous times over the years, Hart has refused to accept his apology. In recent years, Goldberg has stated that he's finally done apologizing, and if he isn't going to accept his apology, then there's ultimately nothing he can do about it. Number 5. Bubba Ray Dudley and Batista. One of the wrestlers that Batista had an issue with during his time in Evolution was Bubba Ray Dudley. When the two worked together in tag matches during the Ruthless Aggression era, the two wouldn't meet eye to eye, and on one occasion, everyone got severely hurt. Batista would discuss this during the WWE Network documentary titled The Ruthless Aggression Evolution. This is when Batista had to say in relation to working with one half of the Dudley Boys. "We just gotten in the ring and Bubba came full on running at me. He just smacked into my arm and my tricep just popped. I went back and tagged Randy. I think he was irritated with Randy and I to begin with, just being that we were two big muscular guys who are now with Ric Flair and Triple H. I think he just hated it. He was always a dick to both of us." Number 4. CM Punk and Jeff Hardy. The most celebrated feud of 2009 was the feud between CM Punk and Jeff Hardy. The feud blurred the lines of fiction and reality, and as a result produced one of the strongest stories WWE have ever delivered. Hardy had an issue with Punk as he believed that some of the content of his promo material crossed a line and went too personal. When Hardy left WWE in 2009, they would air a segment which featured Punk intimidating Hardy, and this made Hardy so angry that he cut a shoot promo on Punk whilst clearly under the influence. In this shoot promo, Hardy would claim that he was the one who made Punk a superstar in WWE. Hardy would declare that Punk was way too cocky outside the ring, and his way of life wasn't the right way anyone should have been living. It was never made clear if the two men ever had a discussion about their issues with one another, but it was reported that AEW could potentially be looking to do a featured Punk vs Hardy matchup, with both of them being in the company simultaneously, but sadly due to outside factors, this never materialized. Number 3. Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose. One of the most anticipated matches heading into WrestleMania 32 was between Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose. The two would collide in a no-holds-barred street fight, and fans expected a war. Unfortunately, the match was rather lackluster, and wasn't anything remotely what fans wanted or expected. The hardcore-style spots were limited, and it was if both men didn't want to be there. It then surfaced months later thanks to a podcast interview that Dean Ambrose had with Stone Cold Steve Austin that he hated working with Lesnar. Ambrose would call Lesnar lazy and criticize him for not wanting to do anything memorable or special. Ambrose would maintain this viewpoint for years, and in a 2019 interview with Wade Keller, Ambrose once again went off on the Beast incarnate.
So day of the show, he doesn't show up till 3 o'clock. We've not talked about any of this match. Show starts at 5. We're 4th. Well, he's not very interested, doesn't really want to be there, and this is the most important match of my life. I'm everybody at WrestleMania wants to show up and steal the show. There are people on that show that night that I know have been literally rehearsing their match for a month, at the Performance Center. And I was dude, we have the opportunity. We have a street fight. We can do anything. I'll take any bump you want. Please, power bomb me in the thumbtacks 100 times. We don't need all that.
Lesnar never formally responded to Ambrose's comments, but his good friend Paul Heyman would go on to call Ambrose's comments ridiculous and would question the merit of Ambrose's disparaging remarks. Number 2. Triple H and Scott Steiner. Upon Scott Steiner returning to WWE in 2002, his first notable rivalry was with the resident top heel in the company, Triple H. This feud would be an utter failure and led to a ton of animosity between the game and the former WCW champion. The matches the two had at the Rumble and the No Way Out pay-per-view were both unbelievably bad. Steiner was suffering from drop foot during this time, and this impacted the quality of the matches on offer. Steiner believed that the game was sabotaging him to make him look as bad as possible, as Triple H was concerned that Steiner was going to take his place on the card. The game simply believed that Steiner wasn't as good as he thought he was, and ultimately had no place working main event level matches in the year 2003. Steiner would continue bad-mouthing Triple H for years. However, in 2022, he would claim that he was letting bygones be bygones and that he was officially putting his past behind him. And number 1, CM Punk and Adam Page. On paper, CM Punk vs Adam Page sounded like a fantastic feud, but in reality, it was overshadowed by real-life drama. Punk's problems with Page began during the build-up to their Double or Nothing matchup, as Page reportedly said something that Punk wasn't comfortable with, and Punk from that point onwards seemed to have a strong hatred towards him. A short time after this incident, in an unplanned segment, Punk would call out Page, which seemed designed to embarrass him and make him look inferior as a result. Punk would then go one step further, and in his last AEW appearance to date, Punk would blast Page during an all-out post-press conference, referring to him as an empty-headed you-know-what, as well as stating that Page went into business for himself. It's worth noting that Page is universally liked by the AEW locker room, and it seems rather peculiar that it was Punk of all people to pick a fight with a former AEW World Champion. But there you have it folks, 10 wrestling storylines that led to real-life conflict. Be sure to leave your comments down below. I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.